I am from decisionpoint.com, and today I'm going to talk about simple indicators that you can use to improve your stock selection and timing. I've gotten more and more involved in short-term trading since we reopened our company, decisionpoint.com, and I'm finding that my indicators really work very well in all of the time frames, especially with entries and exits, finding buy points and exit points. And I do this all the time in my free trading room, so you can register for my free trading room. It's on Mondays at noon Eastern. Just go to decisionpoint.com, sign up for our free newsletter, or you can just click the link about the trading room and get involved there. But as I've been doing my trading rooms, excuse me, and doing my Decision Point Diamonds report, I'm finding, like I said, that some of these really simple indicators, you can use them to really just pinpoint some really great entries and exits. So I'm going to talk a lot about that today. But before I do that, let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I am the daughter of Erin Swenlin, who is the founder of Decision Point. I've been, well, I guess you could say I've been working with him since junior high or high school, but I didn't get really involved in the business until much later. But I did help him. I still remember pulling out the barons and using a ruler and writing down volume and calculating it in an accounting book with pencil and a calculator. So I've been pretty involved in the business for quite a while, but I came up through the educational side. I wasn't in the financial business, if you will. I have a bachelor's in mathematics from USC, fight on. I have a master's in information resource management, and I got that while I was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 8 years, which did put kind of a hold on what I did. But I have to say, in my master's program, I did write my thesis on using neural networks to help predict the price movement in the S&P 100. Obviously, we didn't find the magic bullet there, but we did find out some pretty interesting information. So I have been studying for quite a while. And at decisionpoint.com, I am the vice president and senior technical analyst. I'm also on Stock Charts TV. You'll find my blog on stockcharts.com. My free blog is over there. And I'm a consulting senior technical analyst over at Stock Charts. And I've been doing that for over 11 years now. And then, of course, host of the Decision Point show, and I'm on Chartwise Women with Mary Ellen, who you just heard from earlier. All right, it's all on the chart. This is what I'm going to be talking about, really, and that is the components that are necessary for your analysis, the kind of information that you really should have on your charts and ways to put those in there. And it doesn't take exclusive indicators or anything like that. You can find all these indicators on stock charts. I use different time frame charts, and that's really what helps me with my selection and emphasis on the industry groups and sectors that I'm seeing strength in. And of course, like I said, we'll talk about that all important entry and exit. So first of all, there are two different types of indicators that I suspect everybody is familiar with, but there are those market indicators, and then there are those single indicators that are associated just with your stock. At Decision Point, I use a lot of market indicators, but one of the things I am, like I said, going to talk about mostly today is those stock and ETF indicators that I use on my daily charts. And I'm also, as I said, finding very helpful as well on weekly, monthly charts, and in particular, a 5-minute candlestick chart. So some examples of those stock and ETF indicators that you probably are familiar with: MACD, RSI, on-balance volume. Those are some examples. When you're looking at index indicators, now you're talking about the results of one of those indicators, but it's across all of the components within an index. So that's going to be your percent of stocks, for example, above the 20, 50, and 200 EMAs, or the bullish percent index, for example. So we're going to talk about the components that you want to use on your charts. And of course, price is number one. Trend is very important. So that's where I use my EMAs and my the trend lines and such. You want to know the condition of whatever stock you're looking at and momentum as well. And then I always want to have a volume component. I always want to have relative strength analysis as well on my charts. And then I do have a tool that I use for internal strength just for that particular stock. So the one indicator that is exclusively decision points, but I know it is available, of course, on stockcharts.com, but I believe it's also in Thinkorswim charting platforms, and that's the price momentum oscillator, the PMO. And then we do trend models, and that tells us, in the short, intermediate, and long term, what those trends look like. Are we on a buy signal? Are we on a neutral signal, etc.? And we derive those trend model signals from the daily chart. So, but you want to know those signals in all those time frames. And like I said, you can actually get those off of just your daily chart. The PMO reacts differently in each time frame. So it's not exactly the same across each chart. So a weekly PMO is different from a monthly PMO versus the daily and the 5-minute. So you want to know the momentum direction and those signals in all time frames. So which charts to follow? For long-term investing, we look at monthly charts, then we move to a weekly chart, then we move to a daily chart. Intermediate term, I consider weekly charts to daily charts. Short-term trading, which is what I do mostly with my decision point diamonds, would be your daily charts, and then going to minute charts as well. Your day traders, you're going to use minute charts more than likely, but you can time your entries and exits regardless of whether you're doing long-term, intermediate term, day trading. You can time your entries and exits just using those minute charts, and that's what I'm going to be showing a lot of to you today. So the way I find those entries and exits, like I said, I use the same indicators that I use on a daily chart pretty much. And I use the same thresholds. I'm looking for crossovers. I'm looking for a positive RSI, etc. But like I said, you use the minute charts. I prefer a 5-minute candlestick chart for my entries and my exits, but there's no reason why you couldn't use, the 5, 15, 30-minute for your exits as well as your entries. But I just find that the entries perform much better on a 5-minute candlestick. All right, so selection and emphasis. So I like to scan using all of those chart components. I'm a momentum trader, so that's what I'm usually looking for. I want to know that my PMO is doing a certain thing before it comes up on my scans. I look at middle of the road stocks, stocks that are showing some relative strength, internal strength, but really what I'm looking for in those middle of the road stocks is new momentum. And that's where you're going to find your momentum sleepers. Bottom fishing, I have scans that I do for that. And then I also have a scan that I do for shorts for my Decision Point Diamond subscribers. So the scans are exclusive to decisionpoint.com, but you could certainly come up with them if you use stock charts yourself, and you can build those scans in a similar fashion. But as I've said here, let's go look at some charts. All right, so how do I go about selecting my charts? What are, I talked about those scans, but one of the first things I like to do, of course, is do a sector review, kind of figure out where the new strength is, where continued strength is. And there are a bunch of ways you can do this. We have the sector summary over at Stock Charts. I set up a candle glance so that I can see what's going on in all of them all at once. I have my PMO on it, and of course the price, 20, 50, and 200-day EMAs. So when I look at this just in general, looking at momentum, I can see materials are on a buy signal. They're getting ready to hit positive territory. I can see the energy, we've been losing momentum, but it looks like we might be changing direction here. Of course, when I look at the price chart and I see that the 50 and 20-day EMAs are holding as overhead resistance, I'm not going to be really excited about a sector like that. You can see that XLP still has some positive momentum. Healthcare is just doing great. That's the sector I'm really concentrating on these days. And, we're seeing some action here in financials, but I'm just not seeing the breakouts that I want here. So when I look at this, I just have to figure out, okay, well, which sectors look the most interesting to me? Well, of late, like I said, it's been materials, it's been healthcare, and utilities. So what I do from there, and again, this part of it is somewhat exclusive to Decision Point, and that's I go and do my sector analysis with my sector charts. And, these sector charts are brilliant. Carl came up with them. I have to say he's nailed it as far as participation. We came up with a new indicator called the Silver Cross Index and a Golden Cross Index. I think everybody's familiar with a Golden Cross, your 50, 200-day positive crossover. So that takes into account our Golden Cross Index. It's a market indicator. So it looks how many of the stocks within this sector, in this case XLC, have a golden cross on their chart, have a 50-day EMA that is above their 200. And you can see that that number has continued to deteriorate. So even if we start seeing positive momentum, we know under the surface in the long term, there's some deterioration that we don't want to have. Now, the Silver Cross Index is, we consider a Silver Cross a 20, 50-day EMA positive crossover. So that is the index for that. How many of the stocks, in this case XLC, have their 20-day EMA above their 50-day EMA? And you can see that that is your intermediate term. And you can see we did start to see a bit of a bottom on that, but still only about 42% in XLC of all those stocks have their 20-day EMA above their 50. That's a little bit of a problem for me. I like the fact that it looks like it's increasing, but is this really a good number? Well, when I look at the participation as far as percent stocks above their 20 and their 50, no, not so much. We can see participation is lagging here. We already knew there were some problems under the surface because back here, right there, we could see that we started to get that declining trend starting on participation. We started losing stocks with strength. If I'm going to go into looking at an index for a stock, or a sector, I don't want to have to move against the odds here, where I'm only going to see 26%, 27% of them with price above their 20-day EMA. I'm usually not very interested in a stock that doesn't have their price above their 20, certainly if it doesn't have the price above the 50. So this is an example of a sector that's not looking so hot right now. But we just talked about 3 sectors that I like. And let's start with XLV. This was actually my sector to watch about a week and a half ago. On Friday, I write for my Diamond subscribers. We do an exercise in our own trading room on Fridays where we look at where the strength is and then pick out those industry groups that look pretty good in that sector, and then move from there. Once we have the industry group, then we know maybe where we want to concentrate finding our stocks. Well, back at that point, we were looking at this nice change in momentum. We were seeing volume coming in. Notice that Silver Cross was trending upward. And, right now we have 87, 88% of the stocks within healthcare that have their 20-day above their 50-day EMA. That's excellent. Great participation going on here, and not what you would call particularly overbought in healthcare as far as participation. But just looking at this chart, I know that I'm going to improve my odds of success, if you will, or raise my confidence factor by quite a bit. I'm not looking in a sector where we were looking at comm services. We're only at 27, 28% have price above their 20. I have 86% of them. I know that momentum is carrying these stocks, and it's not overbought yet. So I know that I still can find some great opportunities in there. You can see how the relative performance is just looking great right now. So we had picked out the healthcare select sector. We had picked this one as the sector to watch. Like I said, not last Friday, the Friday before. And so then it was time to figure out, okay, well, what industry groups do we like? I'm going to go back there and show you how we do that. So when you're in that sector summary on stock charts, you can just go right in and click on there and get all of the industry groups within. And so what I had done is I just hovered right above these symbols over these industry groups and determined which ones really looked the best to me. And at the time, medical supplies really looked good to me. And man, they took off last week. We had a lot of success with the stocks within medical supplies. And it just came from looking at my sector chart, seeing that I had good participation. And again, all of these indicators, they are available on stock charts. The presentation that you're seeing now with annotations, those are only available to our subscribers at decisionpoint.com. We keep these annotations up to date every day. And not only do you get this excellent presentation, but you also get to see what we're seeing as far as the stocks in there are concerned. So I picked out healthcare, I picked out medical supplies. But let's get back to where we were. I was talking about materials as well. This has been an interesting area to me. This actually was my sector to watch last Friday, and of course, pulled back considerably, but today we did get that nice rebound off of those key moving averages. You can see how the momentum is shifted upward on a buy signal, almost in positive territory. RSI is positive. I mean, this sector still looks really good, and the participation is improving. Granted, only 36% have a 20 above their 50, but that number is improving every week. And you can see the participation itself has really improved. So this is an area that I've been concentrating on, in particular, the gold miners area. Gold miners are, they're kind of frustrating me right now, but overall, I still am liking those. I actually have a similar chart here for gold miners. I wish we had one for every industry group, but sadly we do not. We do have it for the gold miners though, and I cover this chart every day in my DP alert, where I also cover gold, oil, bonds, Bitcoin, you name it, pretty much it's in my DP alert. And the great thing about it is you can read it in like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and know everything you need to know. But anyway, looking at the gold miners, I really, I was seeing this improvement. I was seeing the PMO turning up. I was seeing volume starting to come in. I wasn't quite convinced yet because we hadn't gotten a positive crossover on my silver cross index. Well, since then we've seen market improvement in participation amongst the gold miners. And you can see that the BPI even looks pretty good here. Not thrilled with the way this golden cross looks, but it has flattened out. We're still looking at a third of the stocks within the gold miners, and considering how beat down they were, that's a pretty decent number that 1/3 of them still have a 50 above their 200. So now I figured out where I'm going to concentrate. And so at that point, that's when I'll be running my scans and I start looking for those high performers within those industry groups. So I actually prepared beforehand. I wrote my Decision Point Diamonds article with my 4 selections for the day, and I'm going to go over them with you. But I also have some other charts that I wanted to show you. Excuse me. Get a drink of water here. So we were just talking about gold miners. Back on July 16th, I presented a gold miner to my readers. And this, again, is showing you the kind of information that, I think that you can get just about everything you need with just these simple indicators. And like I said, they're available pretty much everywhere. We were looking at a positive RSI at that time. I had a PMO buy signal on Franco-Nevada. You could see that the OBV was rising at that point. We had just started to see the stock charts technical rank get above 75. The stock charts technical rank, for those not familiar, is John Murphy came up with some formulas, and basically they run all the stocks through the formula and then they rank them based on the result of those formulas. So this tells you not only that there's internal strength, right, because it had a high number when you calculated the ranking, but it also it has relative strength. It's got a higher number than at this point, 85% of the group, of the small caps, I believe, this large caps. So in its universe of large cap stocks, it's in what I call the hot zone, above 75. It's in the upper quartile of relative strength for the large cap universe. You could also see we were getting some nice improvement here on relative strength. I like to compare the industry group to the S&P because that tells me, okay, am I in a group that's performing? Is this a place where I really want to find a stock? And then I like to compare the stock to the S&P because obviously I want to perform something that's going to perform better than the S&P. And then finally, I like to compare the stock to its industry group. And this piece really tells you whether you're getting a stock that is, an outperformer within the group. So you want to find obviously a group that's outperforming, but to find a stock also that is outperforming the group is an excellent way to, again, improve your confidence in what you're picking. So in the case of Franco-Nevada, this has been a clear outperformer in the gold mining industry group. So this would, if you're interested in gold miners, this one is one you should definitely be looking at because of its outperformance amongst its peers. So we did pick it, like I said, back then on July 16th. Every time I do a pick, I always put in a stop level, to cover not only you, but to cover me. When I get into a stock, I want to have a stop already set and in there. Granted, sometimes we use those mental stops, but I've found that if I put it in as a hard stop right out the gate, that I tend to have much better performance. And if I get in a stock that is starting to run, like you can see Franco-Nevada was running, then I'll set that trailing stop. That way I can eke out as much gain as possible. And then when it does pull back, I can take advantage and book some of those profits. And if I want, I can keep part of my position in if I'd like or not. So when Franco-Nevada came up, in the diamonds, then I start to go seeking what it looks like on a 5-minute chart. But I'm going to talk to you about some new picks because I think that's a lot more interesting to everybody, not necessarily my prior picks. But utilities is a place that I've been watching. Conventional electricity, I think, looks great. We picked this one back on July 16th. And again, that one's really performing well. We were just seeing that buy signal come in and relative performance was starting to improve as well. So one of the stocks that I still like as well. Nucor, Pfizer, I presented at a conference last week, I think, or the week and a half ago. And the comments were, oh my gosh, Pfizer, it only goes up, my hair grows faster than Pfizer's, moves to the upside. But I was like, I don't know, guys, this looks really good. We had this ascending triangle. We had new PMO buy signal. We were starting to see some volume coming in. You could see how the OBV was really starting to make a move. And I was seeing some improvement underneath the surface as well. The industry group is starting to do well. I still think pharmaceuticals look great. And, so we went in and obviously it turned out to be a big winner. At this point, I would be looking at a trailing stop on this. It's a pretty good gain right now, and it has gotten really overbought. So it's a little difficult to enter those positions. Nucor, we put on the list July 27th. Steel was starting to come out of its melees of consolidation, and I still think steel looks fantastic. You can certainly see that PMO on the crossover. Relative strength is just still killing it. And that scooter, that stock charts technical rank, this stock is in the upper 1% of stocks, of large cap stocks, when you do the intermediate and long-term calculations for that. So this one has been a pretty nice one, and Hologic was also one that came in on the medical supply side when we were looking at that as our industry group to consider. We had a nice cup with handle. We'd already gotten this breakout, and again, I was starting to see the relative performance picking up, and so that was one that I really liked. I still like this one, but again, it is kind of on the overbought side, so it might be a really good one, to put on that watch list, because I suspect it's going to get hung up a little bit here at that overhead resistance level, and if you get a nice pullback, this one could be a pretty good place to be. But let's look at some of my picks now. Amazon is not one of my picks. Amazon is an example of how, with these indicators, we already knew that Amazon was in trouble before we had the big gap down. We already were looking at a double top. We already saw that PMO give us a sell signal. We already were seeing a decrease in relative strength amongst the group. Even Amazon was underperforming the S&P at that point, and of course its industry group. So it really was kind of set up for failure. And if you were following it and using these indicators, you would have known that it was time to get out, either at this top when we got that PMO top on that daily chart, or after the sell signal that came in just before that. Even on the rise, you could see that PMO tried to make that move back up, but failed. And as soon as it failed, that was when you wanted to get out. Double top, failure, there's no reason you should have had to eat that giant decline just following these indicators, like I said. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to display for you my current diamond list. This is what I'm giving to my subscribers today. And so we'll look at these, and then I'm going to bring them up over here on my 5-minute candlestick chart. This is where the work is done as far as timing your entries and your exits. And I'm telling you, this the 5-minute PMO, I've got true believers now out there that are my diamond subscribers, but also the members of my free trading room. And again, come into that trading room and you'll get to see this, these buy points and sell points in action. It's really phenomenal. End phase is an area that the solar area has really been interesting me. I have not pulled a trigger on it, mainly because we were still struggling here at those EMAs, that 20-day EMA. We did get that nice hold on the 50-day EMA, but I just wasn't quite convinced yet. My PMO really was still stuck on a sell signal, but now solar is starting to look really good, and this is one of the stronger companies within it. You can see again, compare it to its industry group, and boom, we've got really great relative strength in the group. So again, trying to find the relative strength within the group using this relative strength analysis, I think it's just a key thing that you can put on your charts, and it just doesn't take too much to add them, and I think it gives you amazing insight. The scooter was already rising on this one, so I like that. And now we're starting to see the OBV rising bottoms. We didn't really have that yet, so I just didn't trust this rally yet when it started to come out of it, but now I do trust it. I think that those indicators, the relative strength is starting to really shine through right now. So when I took a really close look at this chart for my subscribers, I noticed that we had this really large reverse head and shoulders set up here, and you've got a neckline that is rising, but that's I don't need it to necessarily get above that neckline. This is a bullish pattern. And if I'm seeing a breakout like I did today above these tops, granted we didn't close above those, but that's okay. This gives us a better entry, right? So RSI positive. So this was one of the picks I have for my subscribers tonight. And now it's time to do the work to figure out where I need to enter this stock. For me, on a 5-minute chart, I have what I call a conservative entry. A conservative entry is a positive PMO, 5-minute PMO crossover with a positive RSI. Those are key. I like to see the volume on the OBV starting to rise, but that's more of a, you can use that as confirmation. The triggers for me are these PMO crossovers with a positive RSI. Now, of course, you can be a little more aggressive. There's no reason why you cannot, but and go with just when the PMO starts to turn. But as you can see, sometimes that PMO turns and then fakes you out. So I find it to be a lot more helpful to wait for that positive crossover rather than just take the turn in momentum. So here we did get that positive crossover, but notice that the RSI wasn't positive. So this would have been a more aggressive entry, certainly not as aggressive as looking at a PMO turning up with a negative RSI. But this would have given you an opportunity to get in on this stock right around 190.77. The conservative entry point came right here when that RSI was positive, PMO was on the buy signal, and that gives you an entry at 190.127. So we're not too far off there. But this tells me that tomorrow morning, if you're not in end phase, that your buy point has arrived. So, you could either set your limit order right around the particular buy point right here, like I said, right around that 190.59, 190.127, somewhere in there. You could set your limit order right now because you know that was the prior buy point. Or you get up in the morning and you watch and make sure that this is going to continue in the right direction. But I like end phase right now. The next one up is going to be Nokia. And this one is in telecom. And, while I'm not necessarily excited about telecom, I have to say when I looked at this chart, Nokia came up on one of my scans. And when I looked at the chart, I did notice that, well, telecom actually is starting to show new relative strength. So this could be an interesting pick. And then I looked at how Nokia has been performing against the S&P and against its group. And, this is the stock I want to be in if I'm going to catch this move, this relative strength move within this industry group. This relative strength here is just key. And again, these are simple indicators that you can set up on pretty much all of the stock platforms that I know about. Scooter, of course, yes, that is stock charts only. But again, if you can't get that, this will give you a lot of information, just that relative strength analysis. But you can see that the volume's coming in here, the OBV is starting to get higher than that previous top, so that's confirming this breakout. I just really like this. My only heartburn that I talked about with my subscribers is that the RSI is overbought, but the RSI is still rising. We know that it can get very overbought. So when you have a stock that's in a bull market configuration, it can stay overbought for quite some time. Those conditions can persist, especially when it's configured like this in a very bullish manner with your 5 EMA 2050 all set up exactly the way you want them, fastest on top, slowest on the bottom. But anyway, I think Nokia looks really interesting. So as I would do in my trading room with symbol requests, I'm pulling that up on my 5-minute chart. This one, the prior buy point, let's see if we can get in here with my crosshairs. There we go. A lot of times you're going to find the buy points happen like right on the open. I generally don't want to do that, even if I'm getting that crossover. A lot of times you get these big pops like we saw in end phase, and then you end up seeing it just fall down to earth. So if you're trying to get in on that opening pop, a lot of times you're just not going to get the best entry. So again, another thing that would have clued you in was when we got that crossover, the RSI was already very overbought. So you could have gotten in on this particular price bar right when it opened at about 190, 165. But like I said, I usually hesitate. But again, you can use aggressive entries using these same indicators. So that's something to consider. So here we go, Nokia, the buy point actually just came in the end of the day here, right around 191.38. Got a nice little double bottom here, got a breakout from the declining trend. I think Nokia is poised to go even higher tomorrow. And again, you'd watch your 5-minute chart. Now, I haven't talked much about exits. Exits, honestly, when you're looking, I know exits are really hard mentally to deal with, but when you get a chart and it's turning south, your daily chart is turning south, it's time to let it go. You know, you have to let go of those losers, and or maybe you have a really nice gain, but momentum is starting to flatten out and not be as good as it was, or the PMO is turned over, or you're getting a sell signal. That's when I go to my 5-minute chart once again. And what I'm looking for is, you know, to me, all I need at that point is a negative shift in momentum. The minute I get a negative shift in my PMO, that's a sell point. I just need a good excuse to get out, and that's generally my excuse. Momentum is shifting. So you can see that if you had done that, if you were following when the PMO started to top here, that would have gotten you a sell point right about here, which turned out to be certainly better than you know, waiting. You could have gone here at that crossover sell signal and also made that a sell point. So that would be how you calculate your sell points. All right, I'm getting very close to the end, so I'm going to show you just a few more. That was end phase. I didn't show you Nokia, so that's my bad there. So Nokia is already got a aggressive buy point with that PMO turning up, RSI positive. So the previous buy point came in back here, right about on that bar there, which would be about $6.26. So we're not too far away from that, and I would be watching, again, the PMO on the open and see if we're going to get that momentum to continue to shift higher. We can see the volume coming in. I think Nokia looks poised pretty well. PDS Biotech was another one that I had here for you. And you can see double bottom, breakout of that double bottom, and then we had that pullback intraday, and now it's moving back up. So this is in pharma. I do like this one as well. And if we look at the chart right here, the 5-minute, your buy point came in right about here. And that's probably right about where price is now at $11.02. We're not too far from that prior buy point. So this one could look good just first thing in the morning. And finally, Tesla. I hesitate to put in the big names because I know everybody looks at them, everybody talks about them, but I was really starting to see this nice move in the auto industry group of outperformance. And if I'm going to go into that group, Tesla, hello, is one of the better performers within the group. So you have to look at that one. And again, there is your 5-minute chart. The buy point came in earlier today, right down here. Obviously, we're not there. We're a bit higher than that, but you can see that PMO is getting ready to turn back up. So this one would be really interesting to watch in the morning, see if that PMO gives you that buy signal. All right, that pretty much does it for me. I gave you what I had to look at. If you like looking at these 5-minute candles and that sort of thing, I do a free trading room on Mondays. You can sign up for our free newsletter. Right there on our website. And then of course I have to give you a little bit of a nice offer just for coming here. And right now, if you want to try us out for 2 weeks, yes, we get your credit card number, but you can cancel right after you set up the trial if you feel more comfortable. I'm fine with that. But just use that coupon code at checkout and you will get 2 free weeks. And then you can decide if you like our bundle of both the DP Alert and Diamonds.